News is in, and it's not bad news for 49ers fans. Deebo Samuel has a groin strain. He's going to be out 1 to 2 weeks in all likelihood. Fred Warner has a hamstring strain. He'll also be out 1 to 2 weeks in all likelihood. Other injuries from today: Marcel Harris is in the concussion protocol. Dre Greenlaw aggravated the core muscle injury that prompted him to undergo surgery earlier this season, but he's only day to day right now. And Trey Sermon actually suffered the most serious 49ers injury of the win against the Vikings. He sprained his ankle, not a high ankle sprain, normal ankle sprain, but he's going to be out for a little bit. Probably will head to injured reserve. But again, Deebo Samuel, 1 to 2 weeks. Fred Warner, 1 to 2 weeks. What does this mean? Well, first of all, the 49ers dodged a bullet. If they were set to miss either Deebo Samuel or Fred Warner or both of those guys for an extended period of time, it would have been bad. These are two extremely important players. You have to have your stars to do stuff over a prolonged period of time in the National Football League. And Deebo Samuel and Fred Warner are both stars. However, 1 to 2 weeks is not a prolonged period of time to miss. So the 49ers certainly dodged a bullet. They're happy about that. And now they have to figure out how to bridge the gap between now and when Deebo Samuel and Fred Warner return. So let's take a look at what these two injury means from a contextual standpoint. The 49ers are about to embark on a very important road trip. They're 6-5. They're on the inside of the NFC playoff picture, and they're ascending in the National Football League. These are team tiers right now, next to me to my left. So you want to be further to the right and further up on this chart. The x-axis is offense. The y-axis represents defensive play. So you take a look at this, and you will notice that the 49ers are right here where my cursor is. They're clumped in there with the Rams and the Packers, and it makes sense that the Packers and the 49ers game was so close. It doesn't really make sense that the 49ers and Rams game was such a blowout, but the 49ers, they're not playing like a team right here right now. They're playing like a team over in the Bucs territory right now. In fact, over the past 5 weeks, if you made this chart, the 49ers would be where the Bucs are. Their offense is off the charts efficiency-wise on the x-axis, and their defense is slightly above average. On the aggregate, 49ers good offense, slightly below average defense. I bring you this chart because the next two games for the 49ers are against the Seattle Seahawks, who are over here, a firm tier below them, almost 2 tiers below them, and then the Cincinnati Bengals, who are a tier above them. Now, both of these games will be challenging because they're away from home. Seattle is always a tough game for the 49ers. You know the Seahawks are going to come to play, and in about an hour we'll have a chance to watch the Seahawks on Sunday Night Football. Who are the Seahawks playing tonight? I should know this. Week 12. The Seahawks are playing Washington tonight. Yeah, so we get the chance to see Seattle play Washington on Monday Night Football, and it'll be a little bit of a preview for the 49ers of sorts because they face them next week, and Seattle has to play it on a short week, and Seattle isn't very good this year, at least so far. So that game should, break in the 49ers' favor if they execute. However, it is Seattle. Seattle always plays the 49ers hard, and Russell Wilson can always be an elusive guy, and he could be a player that turns an upset or turns an underdog situation onto its head through an upset. We're always used to Russell Wilson being the favorite because the 49ers generally haven't been very good when they played against Russell Wilson, but he has been the underdog against the 49ers a couple times, and he has given them a lot of trouble. So that game is not a gimme, and then obviously when you look to see where Cincinnati is on that team tier chart, that certainly won't be a gimme. The 49ers might catch a break if that game is somehow, some way flexed into Sunday Night Football, although I don't know who the Sunday night game for that week will be. In fact, I'll take a look really quickly right now to see if there's a chance that Cincinnati 49ers game is played on Sunday night. That's going to be a Week 14 matchup. And the Sunday night game that week is, they're not going to flex out Bears and Packers, are they? It's Bears and Packers. The Bears aren't any good. The Packers are. I guess 49ers Seahawks was a rivalry matchup and they flexed it out. So we'll see what the decision is this week. But I'll tell you what, based on this little chart right there, 49ers Bengals looks like one of the marquee matchups of that week. You're going to have a potentially 7-5 49ers team and potentially 8-4 Bengals team. That seems like a lot of fun to me. And it's a matchup you don't get that often. That would help the 49ers if that game got pushed back instead of being a 10 a.m. Pacific time body clock start. But the larger point is that this is a 2-game road trip that the 49ers must manage to ford the river through, right? They have to get to the other side of this at least with a 1-1 record, preferably with a 2-0 record, because I think that they're currently playing better football than both the Seahawks and the Cincinnati Bengals. But they're going to have to do that without Deebo Samuel, and they're going to have to do that without Fred Warner. So why don't we take a look at what that means first for the matchup against Seattle, first from the context of the Deebo Samuel injury. This is DVOA from Football Outsiders defense. Seattle is right here. I just highlighted them. Number 19, defense, pass DVOA, number 25, rush DVOA, number 9. This tells us that the Seahawks just aren't as good against the pass. They've been very boom or bust against the pass. I don't think that Jamal Adams is particularly impressive against coverage. DJ Reed is one of their cornerbacks. The pass rush isn't all too great in Seattle. The 49ers moved the ball fine against them back in week 4, but the 49ers just were so discombobulated. And then Jimmy Garoppolo played hurt, and then Trey Lance took over and wasn't really able to throw downfield with any consistency. So they lost that game. But even throughout all of that, the 49ers probably should have beaten Seattle had they had decent special teams. But the 49ers special teams were a complete disaster in that week 4 game. They lost like 14 expected points through that. So it ended up not in the win column. Let's just put it that way. I think if you see this game played again, which we will up in the Pacific Northwest on Sunday, the Seahawks just aren't very well equipped to slow down the 49ers. They simply aren't. This is not a good Seattle defense. So the 49ers are glad right now that they have diversified their offensive attack over the past few weeks, because if they're not going to have Deebo Samuel, they're going to have to be able to throw the ball to other players. Jimmy Garoppolo is going to have to continue spreading the ball around the entire football field. And he has done that in this, 4 or 5 game stretch where he's played very efficient football. In fact, over the past 2 games, Deebo Samuel only has 2 total catches. Immense contributions as a running back, but only 2 total catches. And that's a good sign for the 49ers. They played some of their most efficient offensive football without relying all too heavily on Deebo Samuel, who is now injured and likely out of this game against the Seattle Seahawks. So Brandon Ayuk is going to have a chance to eat. The 49ers are probably going to throw to Elijah Mitchell out of the backfield. He came out of the game against the Vikings healthy. Jawan Jennings is starting to surge for the 49ers. For them, they hope that he develops into that Kendrick Bourne role. By the way, KB doing great with the New England Patriots. Good for him. He was always such a bubbly and positive influence around this 49ers team. But I think that Jawan Jennings has a chance to reprise that role. First off, when you talk to Jawan Jennings, that guy is just so happy to be around. He's got a true passion for life. And to me, that's a page out of Kendrick Bourne's book. He has that same kind of demeanor where you can't help but smile around the guy. So as a number 3 wide receiver who can really block, and Jawan Jennings came in as a blocking specialist because he's a physical guy, this is his chance to see some of that spotlight. Already a good start against Minnesota with some of those catches. Jawan Jennings could do a little more of that moving forward. Don't forget and don't sleep on Kyle Yuschek. 2 huge catches for Kyle Yuschek against the Vikings for the 49ers. And he historically has done good things for this team against Seattle. Still remember when he beat Michael Kendricks down that sideline out of the slot in that Week 17 game in 2019. And you know what I haven't mentioned yet? George Kittle. He only had 1 catch against the Vikings, but we know that George Kittle can be a lethal receiving weapon. So you pair Jawan Jennings on one side up with Brandon Ayuk, and then you have George Kittle running all over the field. Kyle Juszczyk as an auxiliary weapon. Elijah Mitchell coming out of the backfield. Charlie Warner caught a slant the other day. You still have a guy named Ross Dwelly who made a touchdown against the Seahawks the first time that these 2 teams played. You cannot convince me that this 49ers team is devoid of talent if they don't have Deebo Samuel. It would have been a much bigger deal over the first few weeks of the season when Deebo Samuel was racking up 80% of the 49ers receiving production. It simply wasn't a balanced offense for the 49ers back then. And they paid for it because they struggled to get into rhythm because of that lack of balance. But now they are in a much better position to overcome a loss to Deebo Samuel because he isn't carrying as big of a load in the receiving game. In fact, Kyle Shanahan said today on losing Deebo Samuel, he's been a big part of our offense, but I think we're at a spot right now where we can overcome that. The 49ers have indeed diversified their pass attack in recent weeks. Those 2 catches in 2 games for Deebo Samuel tell a lot of that story. They might actually miss him more in the backfield than they do on the outside now, which is a remarkable turn of events. Now, if Deebo is out one more week against the Cincinnati Bengals, here's what their defense looks like. Number 15 overall, number 19 against the pass, number 10 against the rush. So also a mediocre defense. I would say Seattle's bad, not mediocre. So we'll call them both mediocre. Let's be fair. Seattle's 19, Cincinnati's number 15. So 2 mediocre defenses on the schedule. I really think the 49ers can make do without Deebo Samuel. Jimmy Garoppolo's been the most efficient quarterback in football this year. He's melding very well with Kyle Shanahan's scheme. The efficiency gap's been huge over the past 5 weeks, but on the aggregate, Jimmy's at the top of the list throughout this season. And the reason he's climbed to the top of the list over the past 5 weeks is because he's spreading the football around. If there's only one, fracture point on an offense, if you're going through one guy like Deebo Samuel, like the 49ers were through those first few weeks, you're going to be inherently vulnerable. I don't think the 49ers are that inherently vulnerable anymore. In fact, the biggest vulnerabilities here might come along the offensive line, not among their receivers or their running backs. So over 2 weeks, the numbers, I think, bore it out. The film, the numbers, the balance, the opponents coming up for the 49ers, they suggest they should be able to overcome this Deebo Samuel injury. Now, what about the Fred Warner injury? This is a hamstring strain, about the same return timetable. So we need to flip this around and look at opposing offenses. Now, Seattle's case is going to be a little bit different because Russell Wilson's missed a lot of this season. So we have to take their numbers with a grain of salt. But heading to Seattle, the 49ers face the number 13 DVOA offense. So you see with this highlight right here, number 12 pass, number 13 rush. And then heading to Cincinnati, they face the number 23 DVOA offense, number 24 pass, number 22 rush. Seattle with Russell Wilson, I'm not anticipating he gets shut out again like he did at Green Bay. I think the Seahawks are going to have something to say about this 49ers win streak next week, and Russell Wilson's going to have his chance to play Houdini and do all that good stuff. So not having Fred Warner is a concern. And I also think that Cincinnati's a team that you can expect, and they are getting better as this season goes along as far as offensive efficiency goes. Joe Burrow's a young quarterback. He obviously has talent. Jamar Chase is a wide receiver who's in the running for the Rookie of the Year award. He obviously has a lot of talent. Again, that game is currently slated to be played on an early body clock start for the 49ers. So you have to be concerned if the main communication nerve center of your defense in Fred Warner is not going to be available for that game. However, Fred might be back with the hamstring strain in 2 weeks. It's mainly Seattle that the 49ers need to worry about right now. So we'll focus on that game first. And when you talk about Fred Warner and you talk about his impact on the 49ers defense, it starts here. It starts cerebrally. He's obviously tremendously gifted from an athletic perspective, but he is one of the smartest players in the National Football League. And that's where the 49ers will miss Fred Warner. And that's why I thought that Azeez Al-Shaair did a great job filling in against the Vikings. He put that radio in his helmet. He was in position well enough to pick off Kirk Cousins, who only had 2 interceptions on the season coming in. Baited Kirk Cousins, got in front of Adam Thielen, executed DeMeco Ryans' halftime adjustment, made a huge play. The 49ers need more of that from Azeez Al-Shaair. This is a guy who had 146 tackles in his final season at Florida Atlantic. We know that Azeez Al-Shaair can run around the field, play middle linebacker, but can he do it cerebrally at this level? Well, I think the initial indications suggest that yes. I think he was really good on the fly against the Vikings. I think that he's, taken his lumps. I think he's learned on the bench behind guys like Fred Warner, Andre Greenlaw, and now it's Azeez Al-Shaair's time. But I'll tell you what, I think the 49ers, their best way of overcoming this is to continue shielding their defense. Every week we talk about the fact that the 49ers formula this season is different. A lot of people get confused. They get it twisted. They think that the 2019 49ers are going to walk back through that door. Well, I have news for you, and it's not necessarily bad news. The 2019 49ers aren't going to walk back through that door for a full 60 minutes of play. This is a different football team. By that, I mean this team is excellent offensively. I mean, just look at the offensive efficiency. That's the 49ers, top 5 offense and climbing. This is an elite offensive team, and they're going to have to be an elite offensive team if they want to win the Super Bowl. And if you go to the defensive side, they're mediocre. They're right in the middle of the pack. They're opportunistic down there at number 16. They need to do what they did against the Vikings and find and pick their spots to make impactful plays. But at the end of the day, this is a strong offense tugging along the defense. And that means it's the offense's job to shield the defense, not the other way around like it might have been at times of that 2019 season. So the best way to overcome this Fred Warner hamstring strain is to stay on the field if you're the 49ers offense. Keep playing that efficient ball that we've seen from Jimmy Garoppolo and company. It's going to be harder without Deebo Samuel, but I think the 49ers have the firepower to do it. And then when the defense actually is on the field, well, if you only have a limited amount of bullets that you can use every game, especially against a veteran like Russell Wilson. He'll ultimately use the audibles, use the checks to the line of scrimmage to burn you. But the less that defense is exposed, the more bullets you have to use per play, right? Because there are fewer offensive plays that you have to defend. So if the 49ers defense is out there a manageable amount of time against Seattle, I think Azeez Al-Shire, D'Amico Ryans, I think those guys will have enough bullets to make enough opportunistic plays because Azeez already did it this past week. They have enough bullets to make enough opportunistic plays to control Seattle on the way to a victory. The 49ers are favored in this game to open the week for a reason, by 2.5 points. They are better than the Seahawks. The 49ers are a good team. Now they can verify they're a good team because do you know what good teams do? They win even when some star players are out. I think the Arizona Cardinals have verified that they're a good team this year, and they did it when they just walked into Levi Stadium and wiped the floor with the 49ers, missing 4 or 5 starters. Guess who else proved that they were a good team in similar fashion? The 2019 49ers, missing offensive tackles, missing defensive players. I mean, missing receivers. I mean, that team was banged up throughout the course of the year, still went 13-3, went all the way to the Super Bowl. Well, now the 2021 49ers can verify that they're good as well. I think they've already established that they're good. Now they can really hammer it home. The opportunity lies ahead in Seattle with no Deebo Samuel out 1 to 2 weeks, no Fred Warner out 1 to 2 weeks. It's good news for the 49ers in the big picture. It could have been a whole lot worse. Now it's opportunity time for them. Win these next 2 games, or at least one, this first one without Deebo and Fred Warner, and you verified that you're a good team and that you should be right in the thick of the playoff race, which is where they're at right now. So if I'm the 49ers, I look at this as an exciting opportunity to flex the diversification of this roster. It's good at the margins, and now it has a chance to really prove that. All right, everybody, subscribe to the channel. We'll talk to you all soon. I am about to go write some good stuff on The Athletic. So subscribe now. We'll talk to you.